There are two types of doctors using AI in research right now. Those using it as a shortcut and those using it as a thinking tool. One of those won't get far. The other will build a research portfolio faster than they ever thought possible. In this video, I'm going to show you how to be the second type. A bit of context before I jump in. I'm Pasan, I'm a cardiothoracic surgical trainee with the NHS. I've also just done my PhD at Imperial College London and I also code on the side. There are clear guidelines around how AI can and cannot be used in research. And honestly, those boundaries exist for a very good reason. If you use AI to fabricate results, to write your papers, or to misrepresent your thinking as your own, that's just misconduct. But within those boundaries, there are tools that can genuinely accelerate how you think, but not replace it. That's what this video is about. Not shortcuts, thinking tools. There's a real difference, and I'll make it clear as we go. Stay till the end because the third tool is the one most people overlook, and it really changed how I myself prepared for my supervisor meetings. The first tool is Scite.ai, and this one is straightforward. It's a literature intelligence tool, not a generative AI. Here's the problem with how most junior doctors approach a literature review. You search Google Scholar, you find a paper that looks good, and you cite it. But a paper can be cited thousands of times and still be contested, replicated with different results, or even outright contradicted. Scite.ai shows you exactly that. For any paper you search, it tells you how many times it's been supported, mentioned, or contrasted in subsequent literature. Not what the AI thinks, what the actual published literature says. I want to be clear about why this is legitimate. Scite.ai isn't generating anything in this particular context, it is indexing real citations from real journals. You are still reading the papers and you are still doing the intellectual work. What it does is help you navigate faster so you spend your time on the papers that actually matter. Here's how I use it practically. I take my core papers, the ones I'm building my argument around, and I look specifically at the contrasting citations. That tells me where the academic debate is, and when there's a genuine debate, there's usually a gap. And when there's a gap, that's where your research question lives. For a doctor building a portfolio from scratch, that's not a shortcut, that is just smart literature searching. The second tool is Claude by Anthropic. And this is the one where I want to be most careful about how I explain it, because there's a right way and a very wrong way to use this. The wrong way is asking Claude to write your discussion section, asking it to generate your research question, asking it to summarize papers you haven't read, and presenting that as your own understanding, and frankly, it will catch up with you. That is just academic misconduct. It will not work in your favor long term. Here's how I actually use it. After I have read a set of papers, I'll write out my own rough thinking, my hypothesis about what the gap might be, and then I will share that thinking with Claude and ask it to challenge me. What am I missing? Where does this argument break down? What counter-argument would a reviewer raise? It's the equivalent of thinking out loud with a very well-read colleague, except that colleague is available at midnight after a night shift and it won't judge you for half-formed ideas. The key distinction, and this is important, the intellectual content is mine. The ideas came from my own reading, my clinical experience, and my own reasoning. Claude's job is to help me pressure test that thinking and not to generate it. For anyone writing their first audit, their first case report, or their first systematic review, use Claude to identify what you don't know yet. Ask it what questions would a supervisor ask me about this approach. Then go and find the answers yourself. If you are finding this useful, and especially if you are a junior doctor trying to navigate research alongside NHS work, then do subscribe to this channel. I post weekly exactly on this topic. The third tool is Gemini from Google, and this is the most underrated one in an academic context. Gemini is multimodal, which means it can analyze pictures and not just text. And in medical research, figures are half the paper. How many times have you opened a study and found a graph, a forest plot, or a complex regression table and felt slightly lost, especially early in your research career before you had formal statistics training? Here's how I use Gemini here. I upload the figure, I ask it to explain what it is showing me, what the axes represent, what the x and the y axis represent, what the trend indicates, and what the limitations of that particular figure are. And then critically, I go and verify that against the paper's own methodology section and against my own reasoning. I'm not outsourcing my understanding to Gemini, I'm using it to get to a level of comprehension where I can have a real conversation about the paper. where I can walk into a supervisor meeting and contribute something and not just nod along. And that is the distinction. Using AI to prepare your thinking and not to replace your engagement with the material. And one of the reasons I prefer Gemini for this or other tools is Google Workspace integration. If you are already working in Google Docs, Google Scholar, Google Drive, which most NHS doctors are, Gemini sits inside that ecosystem natively. The friction is lower, which means you actually use it. Before I give you the full workflow, I want to say something that I think gets left out of almost every AI for research video. Using AI responsibility in research is itself a skill. Knowing when to use it and when to step away from it, knowing what counts as your own intellectual contribution and what doesn't. That judgment is what separates researchers who will thrive in this new environment from those who will come unstuck. If you are at a university, read your institution's AI policy. If you are submitting to a journal, check their disclosure requirements. Many journals now require you to declare if AI used in preparation of a manuscript, and I think that's a reasonable ask. And here's how I changed these 3 tools together at the start of a new project. Step 1, Scite.ai. I map the literature, I find where the debates are, and identify my research gap using real published evidence. Step 2 is Claude. I write out my own thinking, then I use Claude to challenge it, identify my blind spots, and sharpen my argument. The ideas stays mine. Step 3 is Gemini. I go deep on the papers I'll be discussing. I make sure I can read the figures properly, understand the statistics, and walk into conversations with my supervisor, having actually engaged with the material. None of these replace the work. They make the work I'm doing more rigorous, and they make the most of the very limited time I have between rotas, clinic, and everything else. If you are a doctor trying to build a research portfolio while surviving NHS rotas, you're not behind. You're just working with less margin than most academic researchers. And these tools help you use that margin well. But don't mistake speed for credibility. Your research portfolio is built on ideas that are genuinely yours, on clinical problems you actually seen, on questions you cared enough to answer properly. AI can help you think, but it can't replace what you bring as a clinician. But also don't compare your current version to someone's who's been doing this for 10 years. Get 1% better with each project, because that is the only metric that matters. All 3 tools are linked in the description. And if you haven't watched my video on how to build a research portfolio from scratch as a junior doctor, that's the one to watch next. It's linked right here. I am Pasan, and I will see you in the next video.